Ready, everyone is in place. Great. Good evening, everybody. Oh, I'm so loud. Welcome to the Nashua Public Library. I know many of the faces in the audience, but if you don't know me yet, my name is Jen McCormick and I am the director here. Been here for 15 years and I love it. One of my favorite parts of every year are the opportunity to engage with voters and advance our goal to, what do I want to say, motivate, engage, and educate voters. I want to thank Nashua Ink Link for agreeing to be our partner tonight and Nashua Community Media for coming to live stream this and record it. So anyone at home who can't be here tonight can view this at their leisure in the future. Just a few quick logistics. If you need a restroom, there's a ladies' room right outside the theater. There's a men's room right around the corner, and there's an accessible and family restroom around the corner on the way to the meeting rooms. In case of an emergency, you can leave through either exit at the rear and exit to the outside either through the Chandler wing or through the emergency stairway at the back of the gallery. If you go out this door, the best exit is up the stairs the way you came in. And I'd like to make a plug if you're here tonight. So next week's forum is for Wards 6, 8, and 9. Maybe not relevant to the folks in this audience, but we do hope you'll come back on October 30th for our Alderman at Large forum. And on October 22nd, we're hosting a Board of Education forum, and the League of Women Voters is our partner for that. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Carol to introduce our speaker.
Thank you to Jen for saying all the things I was going to say. That's going to shave a lot of time off of this. But I do want to thank Jen really for being the spark plug and getting this going. What a wonderful gift the Nashua Library is to the city of Nashua. I want to thank the candidates, all of you, for your willingness to participate tonight, for filling out your candidate questionnaire, which we've published, and we've had so much positive feedback from residents who are super appreciative that you've taken the time to answer those questions. And I really want to thank you all for taking that bold step forward to run for municipal office, because it takes time, it takes money, it takes character, and those are all things that we want in our elected officials. So thank you, all of you, for doing that. And maybe a little applause? Yeah, sure. Thank you. And finally, I would like to introduce and thank Roni Camille for agreeing to be our moderator for not just this, but for all three of our candidate forums. He's taking time out from his life, and we can't thank him enough for his time. And he's also on the board of CTAB, correct? So he's already giving his time to the community. So that's what makes a community tick, in my opinion, and that's what makes us a great community. So without further ado, people always say that and then they keep talking, but I'm going to stop. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Roni, and here we go.
Well, thank you, Carol. Candidates, welcome. Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Nashua. We're going to have a lovely conversation and hopefully a civil one this evening. Let's introduce our candidates here. From Ward 1 to my right, we have Haley Gallagher. Next to her, Stephen Chess. Ward 2, Matthew Guthrow, pardon me. And Richard Dowd. Ward 5, Janice Chulin and Dr. Justin Gesterfield. And Paula Johnson. And we did, Nashua Ink Link and the Nashua Public Library did extend an invitation to Brenda Garneau, who is also running for Ward 5, but due to some other obligation, they were not able to attend. So we have lots to cover this evening. Let's get right to it. My first question to you, and let's have you all introduce yourselves. You'll have up to 2 minutes to do so. There is a lovely timer. Holly will be running that clock. I want you all to introduce yourself. And the first question I want to ask you, it's a very easy one. What brings you joy? Haley.
Hello, my name is Haley Gallagher. And what brings me joy is my beautiful 2-year-old daughter, Violet, who is at home and very likely watching me right now. Hi, Vi. And mostly my family. I think that there's nothing better than having your family around, and a lot of my family is right here in Nashua, so I'm thankful for that.
And why are you running?
So a few different reasons. First and foremost, I'm running because our current alderman, 8-year alderman Tyler Govea, is taking the next step and is running for at-large. So first and foremost, I want to continue the transparency and leadership that he's brought. And another reason that I'm running is because I've heard from multiple Nashua residents that they're not necessarily happy with the direction that Nashua is going in. They don't necessarily feel heard by the current board. And I want to make sure to bring that to our ward particularly. And also it's important to me to keep our neighborhoods safe and really help Nashua get back that reputation that we once had of being the best place to live, actually twice, believe it or not. And I truly believe in also the property tax rate is something that I've heard from our residents in Ward 1 particularly, and that's something that I'm going to look into further. For example, digging into the budget and really seeing where we can reprioritize some different spending and make sure that we are doing that efficiently and spreading out some of those bigger projects as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chess.
So my name's Stephen Chess. What brings me joy, I'm gonna a little bit steal your answer, but it really is my family. One of my favorite times is bedtime with my daughter. She's the most giddy and most happy, and it's nice to have the pure joy in your child. So it's always my family. As to why I'm running, I'm assuming that question is next. Sorry if I jumped the gun on that.
That is the question.
Yes. So I'm running mostly because I think that politics needs a lot more civility. It's honestly, I just want to be someone who steps up and kind of shows that it can be different than I don't like you because you're a Republican. I don't like you because you're a Democrat. I think that all of us really want very similar things. We want a safe community. We want an affordable community. We want a good education for our kids. And we might have different ideas about where to get there, but at the end of the day, it's about being able to figure out what is the root of the things that we're trying to get at. And I really think we can build ideas differently by working together as opposed to forming into clans and just knocking heads against one another. And that's truly it. I mean, since running, I think one of the biggest issues that needs to be addressed specifically in Nashua is obviously housing. So there's going to be some degree of obviously keeping taxes in check, but also we will need to deploy some resources to be able to help ensure that we decrease the cost of living for everyone here.
Mr. Kutra.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Matthew Guthrow. I'm running for Ward 2 Alderman, and what brings me joy, I don't want to sound redundant up here, but my family does bring me a significant amount of joy. I have a 7-year-old daughter who is a true blessing to us. My wife is absolutely incredible. She's an educator, and she makes a difference in lives every single day. In addition, my faith brings me joy. We have a real strong faith in our family, and so our faith is a bedrock in our family. I know many of the people here, plus the folks that are watching this being live streamed, I'm sure what brings them joy is the Boston Red Sox, which are playing the Yankees tonight, and that brings me joy as well. So I'm really hoping my faith comes through that the Red Sox will win tonight, so that brings me joy as well. The reason why I'm running for Ward Alderman is because, I've seen our property taxes continue to increase year after year after year. And I think that we can make a difference in that, in terms of spending here in the city. We need to look at spending on needs versus wants. And I'm big on a few core issues in terms of fiscal responsibility, accountability, and transparency. And so I'm not a politician, but I've decided to step up and run for ward alderman because I feel that I can make a difference. I think that we really can focus on economic development in this city, and that we can use that to help curb some of the issues here in our community. Thank you.
Mr. Dowd.
Yes, as far as joy, I enjoy bringing our city of Nashua safe and clean schools. We have been involved in a lot of projects to upgrade our schools as far as security and safety, and that was critically shown a few nights ago. Probably get into that more. This is my 46th year in appointed and elected offices in the city of Nashua. I've been the ward alderman in Ward 2 for 14 years. Before that, I was on the zoning board of adjustment for 6 years. Before that, I was on the Board of Education for 10 years. And before that, I was on the Airport Authority for 15 years. So I bring a lot of experience and background to the job. And I have always sort of tutored new people coming onto the board because it's a learning experience when you first start. And the other enjoyment I had this past year was I was awarded from the Nashua Educational Foundation, the John Krause Educator of the Year for someone that's not in the education field. So that was, to me, a big accomplishment, and I appreciate the award from them, because do put a lot of time into our schools and making sure that, as I said, that they're safe and they're functional, and we've added a number of security issues, and also in most of the renovations we've done, we've added air cleaning systems that take out 98.8% or more of the pathogens that are in the air. So the students and the staff are breathing more clean air, and fewer people getting sick. So it's critically important to me.
Ms. Chulin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janice Chulin, and what brings me joy is a moment like this, where a community comes together, engaged, curious, and activated. I am a mother of 4, so of course I'm going to say that my family brings me a lot of joy, and it's because it's a busy household. And that leads me to why I'm running. While I am a mother of 4, I also know how important it is to build community. When I moved to Nashua, I knew how important it was to integrate into the community. And so finding folks in Nashua that I could grow our children with, grow our families together, was really important to me. And I found that. In fact, I helped contribute to that by co-founding, along some wonderful parents, the Nashua Family Network. And we did that together. And I'm representing voices of families and individuals here in Nashua that want to do well. But in order to do well, we have to listen first. And I think that that is one of my strengths, is that I have an ability to actively listen, to then roll up my sleeves and do work. For example, tonight I inquired about translation services for our Spanish-speaking community. And when I found out there wasn't any, I was able to help find resources so that tonight we have technology available for Spanish speakers who might need that. And later this recording will be have closed caption in Spanish. And all of that points to my desire to build a community alongside other aldermen and city voices that help communicate our desires and our concerns. Thank you.
Dr. Gerstenfield.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Justin Gerstenfield, running for Ward 5, or you can call me Dr. G, as my students do sometimes. To those who celebrate Happy Yom Kippur, for those that are celebrating that this evening, that may be watching at home, and for those that, you're welcome, Paula. For those, what brings me joy is many things, and lucky for y'all, one of those is talking, so there is a timer in the back that's going to stop me from doing that this evening. But experiencing culture and being in groups together with different people is what really helps me understand, and listening to that, having a counseling background and working with various groups of people that have different experiences and backgrounds than myself to understand the walk that they have taken, and being able to put myself in their shoes is something that truly brings me joy, because then I can better understand someone else's experience the next time I encounter someone when I'm walking down the street or when I'm going throughout my community. As far as for why I'm running, I saw this as my time. It is my opportunity to take the experiences that I've had working for taxpayers my entire career, working in higher education on a shoestring budget where every year my boss comes in and says, your budget hasn't been level funded, it's been defunded by 20% every single year my entire career. And so looking at how do I do more with less, and not getting backfills for positions and having to roll up my sleeves and do more with less. And I feel I can bring that experience to the city and bring that experience to our community and represent everyone. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you for everybody, for the forum and everybody coming here this evening. What gives me joy? I have 3 beautiful grandchildren, and there's nothing like being a grandparent. You love them, you spoil them, and you say, take him home. And I just adore my 3 grandchildren, 1 boy and 2 girls, and they are the highlight of my life. And I'd like to thank Alderman Dowd for talking about the air cleaning system, and I see 2 former board members in here. If it wasn't for me bringing that to the table, and I saw it at T-Bones during COVID, then I don't think we'd have this whole system in mostly all of our schools. So I'd like to thank my fellow board members that are here for us being able to accomplish that. And that gave me great pleasure, getting that air filtering system in the school because of all the germs and when we had COVID. And hopefully our schools wouldn't be shut down because of illness that much anymore. Why am I running? You know, I've done so much in this community already. I've served on the Board of Aldermen once. I've been on the Board of Education twice, and I've been a state representative. I see there's a lot of needs in this community, not just in Ward 5. We have horrible traffic problems on West Hollis Street, which we've been waiting to see if there's ever going to be any funding for the West Hollis Street corridor. And all we hear is that we don't have the money. But yet the traffic is horrendous, and we keep building. And the more we build, we don't do anything for our traffic plans. We have this wonderful charter school that's right by my house, and someone's going to get hurt badly because the traffic cannot exit in the morning or in the afternoon. I have come up with some ideas, and nothing has happened. And at this point in time, we have to do something. I feel a love for my community. I've been here 43 years. I've served many positions, and even when I'm not serving, I'm helping the Board of Aldermen coming up with ordinances. Thank you.
I love the passion tonight. For our question now is, Nashua's 2024 total tax rate is $15.90 per $1,000, which is below average of larger cities in New Hampshire, such as Manchester at $19.58 and Concord at $27.69, and lower than Nashua's previous tax rate. Still, some residents say that they find it difficult to afford this rate. What are your thoughts on the current tax rate, and if elected, how would you work towards a manageable tax rate while maintaining city services? We're going to start with Haley Gallagher with this one.
Thank you. Yes. So I would actually say that not some people, but every single person that I have spoken to in not just in Ward 1, but in Nashua is concerned with the astronomical tax rate. It's absolutely out of control. And if it continues, my children, your grandchildren aren't going to be able to raise their families here. And that's one of the main reasons that I am running. So what I'd like to say about that is if I do get elected, I think first and foremost, in terms of the budget, we need to pump the brakes. We need to absolutely slow down with the borrowing money and spread out some of our bigger ticket items and the big ticket projects that we have in the forecast because of what's going on. I think that we maybe need to reprioritize because of the fact that everyone in Nashua is so distraught about that. So something else that I want to say along those lines is that we're borrowing faster than we're paying down our debt. And the city budget so that's why our taxes are so high, and it's a direct correlation from the city budget to why our tax rate is so out of control. So lastly, I just wanted to mention in terms of that, again, that's the number one question that I get from the residents in my ward, and the answer is we're spending and borrowing too much money, and it's a direct correlation to our high property tax rates. Thank you.
Mr. Chess.
Thank you. So I'm not going to make any promises that I'm going to be able to cut taxes. What I can promise is that I'm very against borrowing money for paying for things that we're using today. I think that is stealing from our children, and I don't think it's fair to them. What I can say is that I am 100% for finding things that are not essential to our community within the budget to help fund things that will help our community, help make sure that we take care of the people who are unhoused, help make sure that we have adequate services for people who are house poor. Some of these things do need money, and I don't just want to throw more money at every problem we have, but I do want to say, hey, some of these things are not a priority. We don't necessarily need some things that are just for fun or just make our downtown a little bit nicer. I want to take care of our community, and I want to fund that by making sure that we prioritize our funding well.
Mr. Guttrow.
So as the moderator spoke to, the tax rate this year was $15.90 per 1,000. Guess what, folks? It's going up this year. My approach to reducing Nashua's tax rate centers on broadening the local tax base through prudent economic development and sound fiscal management. I think we can strive to do better here in Nashua when it comes to economic development. Look at Londonderry. They brought in New Balance. And Salem brought in AutoStore, a Norwegian robotics company. I thought the milliards were where we were going to attract new tech companies, but it looks like we're going to focus on housing in that area now. With the state's tax opportunities, I thought, I'm not sure why Nashua isn't more of an attractive destination for new businesses. By attracting new businesses here in Nashua, particularly those involved in mixed use and infill projects, we can increase revenue streams and thereby lessen the community's dependence on residential property taxes. It's also imperative to prioritize bonding initiatives that address essential needs rather than discretionary wants. With Nashua's current management of over $350 million in outstanding debt and approximately 10% of the annual budget to debt service, transparent budgeting process and systematic evaluations of municipal expenditures is critical. These measures will help ensure effective use of taxpayer resources and support a more substantial and sustainable lower tax rate for all residents. Thank you.
Mr. Dowd.
Well, when it comes to the budget, I've been the budget chair for many years for the city and the Board of Ed before that. So I am very familiar with the budget. And it's something that starts with all of the different divisions, and it gets honed down as it goes through that process, even the Board of Education. I will mention at the time, the Board of Education budget, the Board of Aldermen can make a final cut on the bottom line, but we have no line item authority on the Board of Education. Once we give them a budget, they have the rights to spend it the way they want. As far as the tax rate's concerned, in 2023, the tax rate was $18.23 per thousand. Last year it was $15.90, as was mentioned. I checked with finance today at City Hall, and we're anticipating, and you have to remember that we don't set the tax rate. Tax rate is set by the state. They tell us what the tax rate's going to be, because they have many inputs, including the county budget and other things they have to consider. And right now, we're looking at a tax rate in the $16 to $17 per thousand range. If it's 16, that's only 10 cents more a thousand. So we don't know where it's going to end up exactly, but it's, and trust me, all 15 aldermen, no one likes paying taxes. And they certainly would do anything they could to reduce taxes. I will tell you that we have some fiscal conservatives on the board, which is fine. And they have tried to make cuts to the budget, but they can't come up with anything that won't decimate city services. We've had a couple of resolutions trying to cut $1 million from the Board of Education. I don't think we want to take that out on the students. You know, they're trying to get an education and move forward in life. It takes $2 million of a cut in the budget to save 1% on the tax rate.
Ms. Chulin.
Yes. As a small business owner and parent, I feel the squeeze. I'm hearing every day from my neighbors that this is impacting our life, and it's projected to get worse. With making decisions around what groceries to buy, should I eat, my kids should eat, should I not eat? These are real stories from people that I'm listening to, so the squeeze is real. So to better understand this, I spoke to current aldermen, I spoke to state reps, and the information that I'm learning is that our budget expenses are increasing because the city is taking on more responsibility. When the state used to provide more and appropriate more to our city, they are cutting down drastically. That's why we're feeling the squeeze. One of the things that I would do as alderman is to work strategically with our state reps to make sure we can fortify our voices to the state to let them know our families and community are suffering. I do agree that we have to look at any redundancies that might be happening in the city where we can collaborate with nonprofits who are already doing the work and looking at strengthening their capacity so that we can offset some other expenses. I also believe that we have to widen our tax base. Right now, residents, homeowners are feeling the squeeze because we're taking on more of the taxes. We don't have enough commercial businesses in our community. So I would be focusing on economic development, and that way we can increase our tax base through businesses. So that has to do with a lot, with working with economic development to look at, again, who's doing what and where can we strengthen, because there is a lot of good still going on in Nashua.
Dr. Gerstensfield.
Much like everyone else has already said, everyone is already feeling the squeeze. Our families are all feeling it, and much like everyone I talk to says the same thing. My taxes are going up and I am having trouble staying in my home. It's the same thing with our residents. They're having trouble buying homes as well. My next door neighbor just got engaged, and him and his girlfriend are having trouble figuring out, or his fiance, I should say, they're having trouble deciding whether they should stay living at their parents' houses or buy a house or rent. And so we've got to figure out what we can do. But at the same time, we've got to be like I advise students at the university I work for, we've got to spend within our means as well and figure out when is the appropriate time to spend outside of those means, and figuring out what do we need to do in order to keep our essential services running without going overboard on our spending. And so we've got to make sure that our schools are operating and our fire and our police officers and our other city services have what they need, that our parking garages aren't going to crumble because our residents rely on those during snowstorms. We need those services. But there are things that are redundant that we don't necessarily need, that we don't need to bond out. Because just like a student loan, you take out the student loan, you're still accruing interest on that while you are not paying on it. We do the same thing when we overspend and we take out additional bonds. And so we've got to make sure that we are looking at what are we doing? And if elected, I'll look at all of those things in our budget, but we've got to make sure that we're still providing the promises that we want to deliver to our neighbors and that we are elected to deliver to our neighbors, while also holding our state reps accountable to go to Concord and give us the meetings that we need.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. Listening to all these answers to the question, it's a problem here. We don't have that heavy-duty tax base. I've been asking, and if anybody knows the history of the NIMCO property, when that was supposed to become a technology business area, we turned it into apartments. Yes, we need affordable housing, but we also need that tax base. And I said that on George Russell's program yesterday or the day before. And I asked, why are we not bringing these businesses in? And so this is the most important thing here. In order to be able to afford to live in an apartment or a house, you have to have a good paying job. We want to keep them in Nashua. We don't want them to go to Massachusetts, spend their life there, and don't bring any revenue back to the city. But talking about being able to afford, back in February, I had been working with Mr. Cummings and other aldermen, Alderman Moran, on Ordinance 24-041, increasing the elderly tax exempt amounts and the maximum allowed individual and combined net income and asset amounts. I was the one who came to the forefront and said, you know what, we just have it for single elderly, or seniors, I don't like to call us elderly, we're seniors, exemption. And you're welcome, Carol. And we don't have any for married. So I rolled up my sleeves and I brought in all the spreadsheets on all the cities and towns. And we were the only ones, I believe, that only gave for single. And that was really sad because you have all of us that are on fixed incomes or can't retire. So I was happy that this passed, so the single is $57,000 on the income and the married is $67,000, which I don't feel it's high enough, because unmarried you make more when you're working together. But that's what I've done, not even being elected. I still rolled up my sleeve to help this city.
All right, thank you. And I think my mother, who's watching at home, would agree. She is not an elderly, but a senior.
That's right, senior.
Hello, Mom. Question number two, the next question. According to the New Hampshire 2024 Residential Rental Cost Survey Report, the statewide median monthly gross rent for a two-bedroom unit, including utilities, was $1,800, around $1,833. To afford this, one would have to earn $73,000 a year, or 156% of the estimated statewide median renter's income. The median rent, including utilities, for a two-bedroom apartment in Nashua was even higher at $2,355. If elected, what steps would you take to make Nashua a more affordable place to live? We're going to start on the other end. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Well, again, it all comes down to jobs. You have to have good paying jobs. You can't survive on retail, Dunkin' Donuts, or any of these jobs that usually is a second income, or for parents if you have young children, you get that second job. So what we have to do is we have to bring in the job base for the skilled workers, and also with our school system, we have to start teaching our students that if you don't want to go to college, we have to get them skilled to get out in that workplace. And I talked about that many a times on the board. And so that's what we have to start doing in our community, thinking outside this box here, because it hasn't worked for all these years that kids go to high school, they graduate, they go on to college, they get out of college, and they got a mortgage that they have to pay. The other thing is that we're talking about affordable housing. What is affordable housing? We keep talking about that, so we didn't like that word affordable, so we changed it to attainable housing. So in order to be able to have an $1,800 a month rent, you have to have about $6,000 in the bank to show them that you have enough money to be able to rent the apartment. As far as the private homes, the market is flat, basically. No one's selling because us seniors, where are we going to go? So if we go to Florida and we don't like it, we can't come back because then we can't afford to come back. So that's what's happening. I did speak to a lender, and they was talking about generational housing now, that families are starting to move in like what we had when we were young. We lived with our grandparents and our family. We grew up together, but you were able to afford what you could afford, and that's the problem at this point in time. So this is something you have to sit down, roll up your sleeves, and really decide, what are we looking for in housing in this area?
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Gallagher.
Yeah, thank you so much. So again, going off of what Paulo is saying, I think that the most important part is you need to give people reasons to want to stay in Nashua and want to move to Nashua. So having a well-paying job is going to be the reason that's going to get someone to come to New Hampshire, but more importantly, to get people to be able to stay, because I know so many people who would love to stay in Nashua but can't, even if they wanted to. So with those jobs, I think that that's important, but also I really feel that it's important, and I've heard people in the past say that it's impossible and there is no way to lower the budget or to make changes to the budget. And I just don't buy it. I won't stand for it. I don't believe it, because there's not a single corporation or company in the world that isn't able to somehow reallocate resources in a way that's going to make it better for everyone. So with that being said, in terms of the school budget and the city budget, I know for a fact that the city budget and school budget grew faster than enrollment and inflation. So with that being said, I think that there is more conversation that needs to be had around those specific topics, but yeah, that's about it.
Dr. G, same question.
Yeah, so I would say a lot of what's already been said, but I think that we've got to go to, like, what is market rate? What is available? And I think we do need to bring in good paying jobs, but I also think we've got to look at what are some of our good paying jobs that we already have in the city that can't afford to live here, like our firefighters and our police officers. Some of them can't afford to already live here. I talked with a firefighter's wife and their son who just moved back from South Carolina, who he can't afford to live in South Carolina because he said the housing cost was too high, and he moved back in with his parents here to return to be a Nashua firefighter, and he still can't afford to buy a home in Nashua. And I think we pay pretty well for firefighters and police officers, and they should be able to afford to live in the city that they're serving. I want them to be able to afford to live in the city that they're serving, but we also need to have good paying jobs with promotion opportunities so that when students go off to college, they want to return home. I spoke with a family yesterday. Their son is in the Army, and he's concerned that he won't be able to come back to Nashua after he finishes in the Army to start a career. We've got to bring in those businesses and industries. You know, I read when I first moved here that the Broad Street Parkway or the Veteran Street Parkway was supposed to be a technology parkway to bring in businesses. What are we doing to bring in those businesses in order to help bring off the burden of the taxpayers and bring in that affordable housing? And we've also got to stop providing the loopholes for these developers to buy out the affordable pieces of the housing developments that they're building and stop making everything luxury. You walk around our downtown area and every new building that's going up is all luxury condos. What about the affordability of the people that were moving out of the area?
Mr. Chess.
So we actually had friends who had to move out of Nashua within the last few years because their rent went up 25%, and when they requested why, it was because they could. Quite literally, that was the answer. Didn't even lie about it. And we have a lot of actual rooms in Nashua that go unused. We have. I've talked to many people who are retired, their kids moved out, and they have extra rooms, and it doesn't make sense for them to downsize because the starter level homes are also so expensive. So they have this big house and they really want to go down from there, but there's just no benefit for them. So some of the things that we can do is make it so there are actually incentives built into place for them to either rent out some of those rooms or have accessory dwellings, which allows us to increase some of that supply and give a little incentive back to those people who have that extra room. And what that also can do is help increase the market for that kind of early housing type of work that we need, which will help take away some of the power from people from apartment complexes to just raise rent because, quote, they can.
Ms. Chulin?
Yes, I was waiting for the timer. Thank you. I agree with what everyone's saying is that, you know, what is affordable housing, number one? That word does not help us understand or define solutions. The problem that we have now is multifaceted and also will require a multi-pronged approach. So from what we heard tonight is around, like, we need businesses to come in, and businesses want to come in. As a small business owner and being on a board around supporting small businesses, I hear from people that they want to come in or they're incentivized, so we have that, but it's about where will their employees live? And that makes it hard. That numbers that you just shared makes it hard for renters, let alone homeowners, to buy a home right now. So one of the steps to make it more affordable is to first, I like the suggestion, and I've been looking into this a lot, about changing our zoning requirements so that we can have more options, accessory dwelling units, as some people have shared already, and working with landlords and that community so that we don't hear responses like that, well, just because I can. We are all suffering, and we can all be part of the solution and look at creative ways to be part of that solution. So having conversations with both landlords and developers. We talk a lot about working with developers and incentivizing them. The next step is to hold them accountable to that incentivization that we are encouraging. I've heard from different folks just sharing around how important is that accountability piece. Thank you.
And Mr. Guttrow?
Thank you. You know, during this campaign, I've knocked on doors and had conversations with Ward 2 residents who have told me that they're contemplating that they can't afford to retire here in the city that they love. And this is truly heartbreaking. And I've heard many people on this dais talk about how our spending and our budget, it's not really our fault. It's the state's fault. You know, the state, controls our tax rate, and the state controls our problem with our budget. But at the end of the day, the state and federal funds are supplemental funds. Here in Nashua, we have, if you add the school budget and the enterprise funds, we have over a $500 million budget here in the city. And those supplemental funds that we get from the federal and state, those supplement what we have in our budget. We shouldn't be relying solely on those funds. They should be helping us along the way. And so we should find ways to get along without those funds. And if those funds do come in, we should be able to use those funds in great ways to help us with other things here in the city. I haven't been your representative here for 14 years. I'm new on this political front, but what I want to bring is a fresh perspective here in Nashua, and look at the budget and look at the way that we're spending. If we're going to make our city more affordable, we need to look at spending, but we also need to look at economic development and the availability of affordable housing here in Nashua. I propose a comprehensive approach that emphasizes efficiency, partnerships, and accountability. Thank you.
And Mr. Dowd, you're the last one for this question.
Yes, it's again, a multifaceted issue. Right now, rentals in Nashua are less than 0.5% availability. Should be at least over 5%. So that's one of the issues. And we certainly haven't abandoned bringing in technology into the milieu. That's not what we're doing. But you need to have housing. If you're going to bring people in to work in Nashua, you have to have some place for them to live. Right now, that's not as available as it should be. I was a systems engineering manager, program manager at BAE for 33 years. I still have people that I know at BAE, and they're telling us they're trying to hire engineers. They just put $50 million into their plant down the south end of Nashua, trying to hire engineers, but they can't get them because they can't find a place to live. So we can't bring in more jobs and not have a place for the people to live. We've got to do a multifaceted approach. We've got to have places where they can live so that when we bring the people into town, they can live here. Most of our projects that we have going on for housing are, they have a requirement to have a portion of that housing affordable at their various levels. So, you're right, we don't like to use the word affordable housing because it's like 3 different levels. And we are taking that approach. And all of the development projects have those requirements to. We have a lot of homeless people in Nashua. Well, we have to provide a place for them to live. If we want to take them out of the downtown, which has been the local latest problem, we have to have a place for them to live. I mean, that's a multifaceted problem as well for the downtown, but we have an issue with availability of housing, and we have to solve that, but we also need to bring in new manufacturing.
Moving right along, on July 17th, Nashua's Public Health Department counted 59 homeless individuals in the city, although it is estimated that this number is closer to 100. Many of these people suffer from mental health issues and/or substance use disorder. Downtown business owners recently met with the Board of Aldermen to report on how the presence of homelessness in downtown is negatively impacting their business. Now, if elected, how would you address the issue of homelessness? And what are we doing right and what are we missing? And we'll have Mr. Dowd start off with that question.
Okay, thank you. Right now, we do have 3 different places for homeless to try and get shelter. It's not enough. We need to have more places that people can go to have a place to be at night, sleep overnight. We will establish another warming center over the winter, but that's not enough. We need a place all year long where the people can go. We have homelessness issues, and we need to solve them. We have substance abuse issues with people, and we need to have a place where they can go to get treated. So, you know, that's something that has to be addressed, and we are addressing it, and it's not always as evident because most of the work happens with city staff and then in committee before it ever gets to the Board of Aldermen. So, and people think, oh my God, every time you see a Board of Aldermen meeting, everybody agrees on everything. Well, not necessarily. If you want to find out where all the discussions and arguments are, it's in the committee level. So come to the committee meetings and you'll find out where the disagreements are. And we usually come up to some kind of compromise position that everybody can live with. And that's why there's so much unanimity at the board level. So I think we're taking a really good stab at solving the problems in Nashua, and it doesn't happen overnight. We're working with our public health, we're working with the police, and we're working with other agencies to try and help the homeless people and give them a place that they can feel safe in.
Thank you. And most of those meetings are available online on YouTube on the Nashua's government channel. Mr. Guttrow.
So in talking to our residents in Ward 2, homelessness is an issue that many feel has been ignored by our city government for some time. It has grown to a public health and safety concern. Unfortunately, it's not an issue that we can just resolve by putting our finger on it. It's grown far beyond that point to where the downtown business owners are frustrated by this. To address homelessness, and when I say that, this is an issue that has crossed over from the last election season. It was addressed, and I don't think we have really put our stamp on it. I recommend strengthening prevention and diversion programs. This includes expanding rental assistance and eviction prevention initiatives in collaboration with state and federal partners. There also may be opportunities to offer tax credit incentives to businesses that donate to housing nonprofits. Compassionate enforcement measures aimed at maintaining public safety can be proposed, as some public areas that have been identified as health hazards, like Mine Falls and Library Plaza by a member of the Board of Public Works, are certainly an issue. Current city ordinances regarding loitering, camping, and creating trash on public lands without permission are currently not being enforced. Addressing the root causes such as mental health and substance addictions are also necessary. Enhancing community partnerships and increasing the supply of long-term affordable housing through inclusionary zoning could also contribute to solutions. With a focus on prevention, partnerships, compassionate enforcement, I project that Nashua could reduce homelessness by 20 to 30% within 2 to 3 years, followed by the example set by similar small cities while maintaining a stable taxes and public safety.
Thank you, Mr. Guttrow. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you asked this question because in 2022, I had a meeting with the mayor in his office, and I had addressed homelessness situation and what was going on. And I said to him, Mayor, why don't we take some city land and put some tiny homes on it? So this way we would get the homeless population out of the element, and this way they would have a place to live. Well, I guess that never went very far because it never happened. It is really a shame on what's going on in this city. And I had asked an alderman, you mean to tell me the Great American Downtown and the Downtown Improvement Committee hasn't seen what happened here? So I think what we need to do is break this down into different categories, because you have your drug addicts and then you have your mentally ill. And I think what we need to do is partner with the medical community, like the hospitals, and set up a medical facility, like a center where they can live and be taken care of. Because the one thing we need to do is get the addicts off the street, and we need to get the mentally ill off the street and get treatment for them. Then we have homeless population, and I knew a homeless guy, his name was Ken, and he never wanted to live in a home, and they supplied it. So we have to take a look at a difference on them. They might be the perfect scenario for a tiny home where they could still stay within an encampment outside, where that's where they feel they belong. Then you have the population that, for whatever economic reasons, they are in this situation, could be caused medical, and that's where we need to step in and make sure that we have apartments that they can get back on their feet, be able to afford it, and then once they're back where they need to be, then either we can raise the rent or we can help them find another apartment so we can turn it over. So those are the different areas that I have seen, and I think working together with the medical community, with the mentally ill and the people who have drug addiction is the most important thing.
Dr. G?
So I agree with a lot of what's already been said, and I think that comes from a background of having worked with some mandated clients who had to make the decision to come and talk with me or stay in jail. And so thankfully they came and talked with me, and from that I learned some really valuable things from them, and that what a lot of has been said of partnering with medical facilities and helping those that are suffering from addiction stop being unhoused and work through treatment programs. But I think we also have the ability to provide preventative services, some of like what we've already talked about. Not only the very low housing areas that we could have, but we could also provide emergency rental assistance. We could provide eviction prevention services. We could provide utility help for those families that may be in crisis, for those families that may just get that notice that says your rent is going up 25% just because I feel like it. One of our own small business owners here in Nashua said that over the course of the last 5 years, her rent has gone up almost 50% simply because the owners have felt like it. And as a single parent who is parenting alone with 3 children going through public schools, how are they supposed to afford that? And a lot of times for some of our unhoused population, like most of us, they're one paycheck away from becoming unhoused. And so if we have the ability to provide some of these preventative services, we may be able to stop some of them from ending up on our streets, while also bringing around these wraparound services of partnering with our medical facilities to help them as well. Thank you.
Ms. Chulin?
Yes, as we hear from everybody, we understand that homelessness is a multifaceted issue. It intersects with many different aspects of our society. We have kids who may be aging out of foster care. We have domestic violence issues. We have substance misuse issues. The list goes on to causes of homelessness. What I hear the question is how do we plan on solving it? And I hear some feedback around how slow progress seems to be, but I think that also shows how complicated and complex homelessness is. So I hear the ideas of prevention and helping support before there's an issue, so a crisis. And many of our residents don't know of available programs like this. There is an opportunity to learn this. It's deeply embedded in the city website, that searching for anything makes it very hard to find. But I'm talking about programs like property tax assistance. There's a program that I've learned about that. There's utility bill assistance. Many of our residents don't know about that. So getting that out is really important. And also listening to our residents for solutions. As I was door knocking, I had one resident come up, I've never heard of this solution, and it was innovative. She desired that if it was possible that the city could vet her. She's a widow of 15 years and lives in a big house in Ward 5, and says, I would like to be vetted by the city as a foster family. I could foster a family, because that's the other issue with shelters, is sometimes families can't stay together. So if she was vetted and the family was vetted, she would be able to take this family in for so many weeks. And so it's ideas like this that we need to keep our ear to the ground and be in community to hear about them.
Mr. Chess?
So this actually, I'm going to reference myself from earlier. I said I'm not going to promise taxes go down, and I referenced this exact thing. There's a lot of homelessness. It needs money. Everyone referenced mental health services, getting a roof over people's heads, help with drug addiction. All of those things cost money, and that is why I am 100% on board with everyone on trying to find ineffective uses of our money so we can find room in the budget to get people off the street, because that is just more important. It just is, and it does cost money to give mental health services and get a roof over people's head. And the other thing to consider is that these are all great ideas and we should do all of them, but we need to be speaking with the people impacted so that way we can get new ideas from the people who would know best. I already have a meeting scheduled with the Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter, because they get to say they'll have more information on, hey, what is preventing people from using this, or what resources do you need to help the people who you are already helping. Meeting with the police and reached out to Mary's Place, it's important, and a previously unhoused person in Nashua. These are all different perspectives from this problem. So we do need the funds for this, and again, I don't want to increase taxes. I would love to maintain them, but again, it's going to be hard to throw money at mental health services and all these things. It just costs money, and we need to find other places in the budget and fix these things first before we give money back to the community.
Ms. Gallagher, you're closing out this topic.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to say first and foremost, regarding the special Board of Aldermen meeting regarding the homelessness, I was absolutely appalled by the way the current board spoke to our business owners on Main Street specifically, and I think that it's unacceptable for them to say that they didn't know that it was a problem, because the buck stops somewhere, and that's here. So with that being said, it's also even more unacceptable for the mayor to say that he wasn't aware of that problem. But it is understandable that someone maybe in Ward 1 all the way in North Nashua might not be familiar with the problem. So I think that it's important that we make sure that all the residents in Nashua know how bad this has gotten. And when I say how bad, I do mean that the current businesses on Main Street are ready to go. So they, at this point, they are probably going to go, most of them that are big sellers on Main Street, specifically some of the restaurants and bars. So with that being said, yes, it's a huge problem. I would be interested to know the numbers specifically with the 50 to 100, how many of them are actually mentally ill and or drug addicts, because I would argue it's probably 99% of them. And along with what Paula said, a lot of them are choosing to be homeless. So to cover this up by saying that there are families on the street of Nashua with their babies that they don't have anywhere to go at night, that's just not true. I personally would open my home to a family needing a roof, and I know that my friends and the different churches in Nashua would also do that and do currently do that. So we have to be realistic about the current people that are on the streets. Lastly, I just want to say that there are some ordinances in the works, which is good news, about it's going to allow the Nashua PD to enforce their authority a little more in regards to that. But yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you all for your responses. So being on the Board of Aldermen is like being on a board of directors of a large corporation. You'll be overseeing a city or municipal corporation of 90,000 people, several departments, and 2,700 employees. And as one of the candidates mentioned, the budget is pretty big, close to $500 million. Talk about why you feel uniquely qualified for this position and how you will rise to the responsibility of the job. And we're going to start with Ms. Gallagher.
Thank you. Yes, so I think that it's important to get fresh point of views in there. I don't like to say it, but I do blame the older generation of Nashua for the position that we're in today. So if it's going to take my generation to stand up and make a change, I'm going to be the one to do that. And definitely looking forward to challenging some of the issues that have been put out in the past, such as there's no way to lower the budget, and or there's no way, once we send the school budget one way, that's it. But I think that there's more conversations that need to be had around that. Also, in terms of the open jobs in the city, I think we need to take a further look into that and look at the job descriptions and see if there's any redundancy there, because somebody that currently is working for the city is very likely already doing one of those jobs, right? Because if the job isn't filled, someone's doing it. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you very much. I've sat on both boards. I know what it's like to work on the budget. I was the chair of the Budget Committee for the Board of Education, my last year on the board. 4 years on the Board of Aldermen. I was on the Budget Committee. I was the clerk. The budget is a big, complex book. And you have to understand that budget from the beginning to the end in order to figure out where we're going with this budget. And it's complex. I understand the budget. I know how to go through the budget and ask the important questions and to see where we need to make reductions in the budget. I did that on the Board of Education. I did not vote on the budgets because I felt that there were areas that we needed more money, like in maintenance. We had like $13 million worth of maintenance projects that weren't getting done because Capital Improvement Committee did not vote on it. So how do you leave your city in some areas not being able to fix buildings? That's why we keep building new buildings that's supposed to last a lifetime, but we're told 20 to 30 years. Well, that can't happen anymore. We need to take a look, see how that money is being appropriated, and then move on, and then look at every line item here, because if we don't, every several years, when we hit 20 to 40 years old, we're going to be tearing down that building and putting up a new building, because the most important thing is maintenance in that budget. Because remember, if you have a faucet that has a leak, do you put a piece of gum in there, hopefully that's gonna clog it? Or do you fix it immediately before it becomes a bigger problem? And being that I've served on all these boards, I understand it. I know I can, on the first day, roll up my sleeves, get right into that budget, and see where we need to make those appropriations. But I will tell you, I was with Mr. T-Boom in the 90s when we passed the spending cap. So it's not this generation. It has been the boards before that couldn't control their spending.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We're going back to Ward 1, Mr. Chestnut.
So I actually have professional experience with managing budgets. I'm an engineer and I actually oversee cost and personnel for my programs. I have experience with other parts of programs running over and saying, hey, you have 80% of the money now, go. And then I have to go through the budget and say, hey, look, we still need to do these things. What can we descope? What can we do in a little bit of a different way? And then I had to communicate that to the customer. I am used to both managing money and also just being honest about what we can do with the money we have. It's exactly why I'm being very transparent with you today and saying, yeah, I want to help the homeless, and it's not free. I'm not going to make promises that I'm going to solve all your problems and I'm going to get rid of all taxes. It's not the case. I'm going to just be as transparent as I can with the experience I have managing money, and my priorities is going to be using the money we have to help the most people and help people who need it.
Dr. G.
So I think at the end of the day, what is important to me when I'm looking to serve is that at the end, we're all neighbors. We're all neighbors trying to do the best that we can. And having worked my entire career for taxpayers, having to account for every pencil that I have picked up and every pen that I have used. I joked with Paula when I started tonight that I have to shake my printer ink, for those that still use ink, before I can put it back in. I assure you that every penny that I have ever spent has been used. Writing grants and having to do all of the budget that goes along with that, to that is how I continue to be awarded multi-million-dollar grants to continue funding to help college students be able to finish their degrees or go to technical school. And that's the same type of experience I want to bring with fresh eyes to the city of Nashua, looking at the experience as someone who's in their middle age, which I hate to say because I don't feel elderly and I don't feel middle-aged, but looking at it as the generation that is now having to work multiple jobs to help pay to make sure my senior parents or in-laws can stay in their homes, but also because of the rising cost of childcare, because people are paying what should be the cost of a mortgage in order to put their kids in after-school care. So looking at this as being in the sandwich, going into the city and saying, okay, what do we actually need to spend our money on? Because we can't keep pushing it back onto our neighbors, but we also have to keep the lights on and make sure that when we pick up the phone and call 911 or when we send out the school buses, that they can go and pick up our kids and take them to school. And that's the type of experience and neighborly attitude that I plan to bring to City Hall.
Mr. Guttrow.
So I work in the travel industry and I manage large million-dollar budgets for large and small business owners and help them reach their financial success. And as your next Ward 2 Alderman, I want to focus on transparency, accountability, and long-term stability. We've got to spend our infrastructure dollars more wisely and push for property tax relief. We need a representative that's not going to allow federal ESSER funds to lapse and as a result turn into double that amount in a taxpayer bailout for school building projects. We need a representative that's going to remain focused on preventative maintenance at Stello Stadium, that's going to keep our athletes safe and won't leave parents scrambling for places for our kids to play football, soccer, and lacrosse at the last minute at a much higher cost than the city of Nashua. That will all change when I become your Ward 2 Alderman. I am determined to foster open communication, ensure prudent fiscal management, and champion initiatives that will enhance public safety and quality of life for every neighbor in Nashua. Gone will be the days when you learn that the city changed your property evaluations from every 5 years to 2 years because you got a notice in your mailbox. I'm going to hold ward alderman meetings in our ward because I want your voice to be heard. I will put out a newsletter to keep my constituents informed, and my social media is going to be updated on what's going on in our city and not just when it's convenient during election season. I'm listening to the residents of Ward 2, and I want to serve you, my neighbors, because this is our city, and together we can make a difference.
Ms. Chulin.
Yes, I have professional experience I'm a small business owner, as I mentioned earlier, and so I have to make a lot of financial decisions, including budgeting and prioritizing, especially forecasting what I think is going to happen, and then, a crisis happens. So I'm agile, and I also think it's important to be transparent in spending and being sure that we're communicating with our constituents what we're spending money on, and also making decisions on prioritizing those issues with the voice of our community, not just deciding as an alderman what those priorities are, but hearing from community. A lot of times I hear that our city aldermen are busy doing what they're supposed to do on city government work, but where are they in the community? And what I do differently is that I'm in the community. I'm talking to neighbors. I'm building community with parents and families. I'm creating programs here at the library or at Arlington Street Community Center to address some of the issues that we see. So I'm happy to be a part of that. I also think it's important, as in addition to being transparent, but making sure that we be fiscally responsible, that we have an adequate budget for spending money on programs that we believe are important or required. Thank you.
Mr. Dowd.
Yeah, first of all, there was a lot of misinformation there. One thing, the Stella Stadium, a lot of people don't know this, is an educational facility, but it's maintained by the Board of Public Works. And the only way that the Board of Aldermen get involved is the Board of Education makes a decision that we have to do some work. That includes any school project. And then they will send that to the Joint Special School Building Committee. I can tell you the Stella Stadium field has been totally replaced. That a lot of maintenance has been done. We've improved several things at the stadium. And we are still going to return money from the bond that was authorized. I've been working projects on all 18 schools over the 24 years I've been involved with educational projects. And as chair of the Joint Special School Building Committee, I've never had a project that didn't finish on time and under budget. On the middle school project, when we were done, we returned $6.6 million out of the budgets that were put aside for the school project back into the city. 2.2 million of that was used to fund the security vestibule project at New Searles, so we didn't have to do any additional bonding, and we used the lower interest rate we had from the middle school project. So, and Main Dunstable, Birch Hill, we had to, because of the air quality and other issues, including security, we took those from open concept schools to closed rooms, and with new ventilation systems, new security upgrades. We have the safest schools in the country, by the way. And we are returning money from that project. So I think that we have been very frugal with the way we handle our money on projects, and I'll leave it at that.
All right. Next question. What do you view as the most pressing issue in your ward, and how would you address it if elected? We're going to start over in Ward 5. Ms. Chulin.
Yes, the most pressing issue for Ward 5, from what I'm hearing from my neighbors, even as early as this morning, is the property taxes. And when they're going to see relief, why it's so high. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of it is about a disconnection of like why it's so high. I'm a homeowner, and I myself didn't understand why until I started asking questions and getting a full grasp of what it is. So I do think that transparency is so important, which includes communication to our constituents, that includes different modalities of communicating, not just newsletters, and not just newsletters that are copy and pasted from transcripts of the meeting. I'm talking about translation of what's going on into everyday terms for our constituents. While I was knocking, the number one question I would get is, what does an alderman do? And that's my favorite question, because I get to translate the work, the inner workings of city government in a way that they can understand. So if I'm talking to a parent, Jorge, who said, I really don't know what an alderman does, I got to explain it, and I got to explain it in Spanish in a way that he can best understand. And with that, he had an idea. Oh, I need a crosswalk. I would love one. I get so scared when my kids cross the street on Main Dunstable just to get to the bus stop. And so in communicating with that, in knowing what his concern was, I was able to get him in contact with Public Works. I'm not even elected yet, but I'm using my abilities and my knowledge to connect people with the resources that they need. So it really is about listening and understanding what the needs are. Thank you.
Dr. G?
So the things that I'm hearing from people when I'm going around and knocking is that many of the residents that I've encountered so far are saying that they're actually feeling a little forgotten in parts of Ward 5. And the reason that they're saying is that they feel that the couple that I talked to last night said that they feel all the focus is on West Hollis Street, and that everyone is focused on what's going on West Hollis and what is going on at the Department of Public Works, and that everyone has forgotten about the rest of the ward, and that they too need sidewalks, and that they too have traffic problems, and that we need to be focusing on the rest of the ward and their sidewalk problems. And so when I'm walking around and I'm hearing from the residents all over, that's been the number one thing. Some of them have said, yes, I'm concerned about my taxes, but when I ask them, I say, I'm running for alderman, what do you want me to know that you're concerned about in the ward and with the city? Taxes actually has not been the first thing that's come up. It's been, I want sidewalks. I feel like no one's listening to what I have to say because I don't live on West Hollis Street. That's what the Ward 5 residents to me, and I have a couple of Ward 5 residents with me in the crowd that have gone canvassing with me, and they've heard multiple of these residents say that. And then also the affordability of housing has been the other piece of it, which does relate to taxes indirectly when you look at that. But those have been the main concerns that I've heard from that, and those are things that we also have to address by being available to listen to all of the residents in our ward and the residents of the city as we're sitting on the Board of Aldermen.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. In my door knocking, I've heard many things. Taxes being too high, that they can't afford their property. West Hollis Street is a big piece because of where you are on Riverside and that merging, that you have to merge left into the traffic. And now with the school where they put the addition, they seem to be using whatever is like a little breakdown lane to line up to pick up the children, which is very dangerous. And I've come up with suggestions on that. Put a traffic signal up that the school pays for and that they control, just to let the traffic out in the morning at drop-off and pick up in the evening. That would solve some of the problems, or going behind the Pratt home as an egress and bring the traffic around to Riverside. We have to get rid of that congestion. I've also heard about Main Dunstable Road. Main Dunstable Road, that's going to be, if you're talking about sidewalks there, that's going to be a big project because it's so narrow. There's no room. The road is right into the properties. So that's a big piece that might not work. But also with the DPW, we were at the same zoning board meeting with that sign, which was $24,000 to put up a new sign in front of DPW administration building. And I had gone on that to a couple of meetings because residents had asked me to go. I go to as many meetings as I can, the West Hollis Street corridor, which if that gets fixed, then the elimination of traffic maybe on Main Dunstable Road might ease up because you're going to have a more traffic calming on West Hollis Street. But West Hollis Street is that main road right into Hollis, right into Pepperell. So you're getting Hollis residents and Pepperell residents from Massachusetts. And so that's why many people are focusing a lot on that big intersection because of all the housing that's happened, and yet there's no traffic relief, and it's very dangerous. Thank you.
Mr. Dowd.
Yes, on Ward 2, I've never found anybody has a problem getting in touch with me if they have a concern on anything, and I talk to people several times a week. Some of the things that have been accomplished while I've been alderman is I worked back with Mayor Lozo. We got money to completely rebuild Charlotte Avenue and put in new sidewalks, safer crosswalks, speed indicators to slow the traffic down because there's a school. I don't know how many stop signs and changing of speed limits we've done in Ward 2. We completely renovated Charlotte Avenue a few years ago, and more recently we rebuilt Pennachuck Middle School and added on to it and made it much better middle school project. And another project that happened on Tinker Road was there's a curve on Tinker Road that was having multiple accidents, and the neighbors were very concerned, got in touch with me. I got in touch with DPW right away. We put up signs to slow things down to 20 miles an hour with arrows. And about 2 days after we did that, a car went flipping off the road right into one of those people's backyards. So now DPW has gone in. They've changed the gravel on the side of the road because what was happening is cars were hitting there with their tires and they were flipping over. And they fixed that, and they temporarily have Jersey barriers up on that corner, and it's going to be replaced at some point with a guardrail. So all those people on Preserve Drive are very, very happy that they're not having cars flinging into their backyards where their kids play. So, I mean, I can go on and on. I had a woman today that was concerned about helicopter traffic from the airport, and I gave her some suggestions, and she's very happy with what was taking place.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. Mr. Guttrow.
So I've been walking Ward 2 for a while now. I've been doing so much walking around Ward 2. I've developed plantar fasciitis now. I guess it's just a cause of my love for my neighbors in Ward 2. But the main concerns that we hear, that I hear in Ward 2 is the tax rate and the concerns about property taxes. Some of the other concerns that I hear from my neighbors in Ward 2 is that they feel that the city is spending a tremendous amount of money and resources on the downtown area, and they're wondering, with their property taxes, why isn't that money being spent in our ward as well? And so that's a concern for them. When I decided to run for ward alderman, my neighbors asked me to run for ward alderman because back in February, we had a snowstorm and we had some issues with plowing by DPW. Now, I want to preface these comments by saying I believe that the men and women that work with DPW are probably the hardest working people in our city. I mean, they're working night and day on those trucks plowing. But for some reason or another, our leadership had not gotten them to our neighborhoods during this one snowstorm in February, and we had to wait almost a full day for them to plow our streets. And, we have seniors that couldn't get to their medical appointments or get to the market. And when I brought it up to the mayor, he had talked about the fact that we were down a significant amount of plow drivers. And so hopefully that we have that resolved by this upcoming winter. So thank you.
Mr. Chess.
So this isn't the exact question you asked, but the first thing I hear, the most I hear is not actually problems, it's that I like Nashua. Nashua is a great place. I don't really want it to change. I don't want it to be Boston. I don't want it to be this. I like Nashua. And that's really great to hear. People like our city, and that's a good data point because we aren't trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're not trying to tear everything down and start anew. Nashua is a great place. It really is. The two biggest issues I hear are usually in kind of a joking way, but obviously it is a serious issue, is taxes, and the other one is homelessness. I have talked your ear off tonight about both of those, so I'm going to go to the third most thing I hear, because you know my opinions on taxes and homelessness right now. And that is honestly some things that I guess you kind of heard with the other answers, which is, hey, right here, kids are jaywalking. It's unsafe. Cars are still going fast. It's a 30-mile-an-hour road down Broad Street, but it's coming from 5 lanes, and people are just zooming by. Like, can we do something about that? Hey, there's like a sign there that is 30 years old. The letters can't be seen anymore, and it's outdated. Can we get rid of that? It's the little things like that that really add up in the community, and those are honestly small dime things. Again, everything costs something, but small dime things that when you start adding them up, help make our community a safer place, a nicer place, and just it makes it Nashua, which everyone loves.
Ms. Gallagher.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that you said that, Stephen, because that's something that I noticed too, and it makes sense because we're talking to the same people in the same ward. But honestly, it has fully restored my faith in humanity, talking to all the lovely people that I've spoken to within Ward 1 so far. And the majority of people have said, I love Nashua. That's why I live here, and that's why I feel so strongly about making the decisions that are going to affect my children and their children in the best way possible. So, of course, the number one concern that I've heard is the tax rate, the property taxes. But I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction because we have talked so much about that. And I'm going to talk about safety and specifically Mines Falls. So I've heard a few different residents are concerned and they no longer feel comfortable walking their dog through Mines Falls. I know that I and my mom, we walk our dogs through Mines Falls regularly, and I personally no longer feel safe. I know that my mom will say, don't do it, don't walk your dog alone in there even during the day anymore, because of the not only homeless people, but very clearly mentally disturbed. And I actually heard from some residents that their children that go to Nashua High were walking through Mines Falls and were actually approached to be sold something. So that is just absolutely unacceptable. And I think that that is very important. And what I've heard from the city when I ask, why aren't these people that are breaking the laws being arrested? And they kind of come back with, well, the ordinances are too vague. But I know for a fact that we have an ordinance that specifically states that there's no sleeping on conservation land, and Mines Falls is conservation land. So with that being said, I think that it's just the voices of the residents of Ward 1 need to be heard, and instances like that. Thank you.
All right, and the following questions were taken from the Nashua Ink Link Voters Guide responses, and you could check the Voters Guide response on the Nashua Ink Link website. Ms. Gallagher, when asked what your strategy would be to lower the tax rate for Nashua residents, you said your strategy would be to control spending, prioritize essential services, and ensure every dollar is used efficiently. How would you distinguish between essential services and non-essential services?
So I think the big point there is going to be looking further into the specific roles, and is there any redundancy there and duplicity? So I think that, like I said, with a lot of the current open roles in the city, if there's not someone in that job right now, someone's definitely doing it. So taking a look further into that.
Okay. Mr. Chess, this is your first time running for a political position. What inspired you to venture into politics and run for alderman?
So I kind of dabbled on this a little bit at the very beginning, but we'll touch back at it. It's civility. You know, we're all on one team here. We all want a safe community. We all want an affordable community. We all want what's best for our kids, what's best for our parents, what's best for our friends, our spouses. That's all any of us want. And I think when you really get down to the root of it, I think we can agree on a lot of things, and we're going to need to debate on it. And instead of what I feel like I see too often of things being potentially voted on party lines, or, you know, people kind of bashing heads against each other, bring that kind of engineering frame of mind that I have of saying, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't know how to do this right, maybe you have great ideas that you can put into it too. And I think we need more of that, and it's something that I have a strength at, and I want to offer what I can to the community in an area that I think I see we struggle.
Mr. Guttrow, in response to the Ink Link questionnaire, you said that you aim to create a balanced approach that strengthens Nashua's financial foundation and enhances the quality of life for our community by prioritizing essential investments, promoting organic housing, affordability, and safeguarding taxpayer resources. Please explain what you mean by organic housing affordability.
I think that we need to partner with private partnerships, that we can go out there and address affordable housing. So with affordable housing, I think that we can address that with a number of different subjects, whether it be going after mixed use projects. I think that we can use infill projects to help us address affordable housing. I think that we need to hold these builders accountable and make sure that the different levels of affordable housing are being met. And if they're not being met at a certain rate, that we have the ability to create legislation that will claw back some of those subsidies that we are giving back to them, so that we can ensure that affordable housing is met. And in terms of some of your the other points that I made on there, I think that we just need to look at how we're spending here in the city and make sure that we are spending based upon needs and not just wants.
Mr. Dowd, you said that the largest impact on our city budget is driven by the state, and that the state support for education and the retirement system are below what they should be. You also said that the board hopes to work with the state legislature to provide additional state funding to reduce property taxes. What relationship does the Board of Aldermen currently have with state legislatures, and how does the aldermen communicate to them their concerns and needs of the city? And does the communication between the board legislature change, and if so, how?
I think we have a pretty good relationship with our state reps, and we meet with them all the time and talk to them all the time, and it's amazing how they go up and serve us day to day for $100 a year. I mean, it's crazy, and there were 400 of them. The two things that the state could help us on, chances are they're not going to, but if it's been through like multiple court cases, they're not providing adequate money for education. And if the state provided us with the amount of money the courts are saying they should be paying us per student for education, your tax rate would go in half or better. The other thing is that several years ago, multiple years ago, the state put in a state retirement system, which all of our people are in the city government, and they promised to pay 35% of the cost of that retirement fund, and they kept reducing it over years, and now they pay nothing, zero. The one year when they paid 15, a couple of years ago, Alderman O'Brien got them to pay 15% through legislative efforts, and it brought us like $2 million, which is 1% on the tax rate. I mean, So I doubt that they're going to be able to do anything, because I just read in the Union Leader today that they're $400 million short on the highway project going up to Manchester and beyond, and they're stopping it. They're stopping it because they don't have the money. So the congestion that you see going through Merrimack these days is going to be probably in place till 2030. To me, that's crazy. So hopefully, if the state can find some money somewhere, which I doubt, we need to get it.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. We are out of time for your response. Ms. Chulin, you said your main goal as alderman is to help build a government that listens, acts, and works closely with the people it serves to make our neighborhoods safer, healthier, and more connected. How will you ensure that citizen voices will be heard at City Hall?
I hope that in the time that I've spent with you and those watching online, I've shown you that I'm a doer and I'm a listener. From my work with Nashua Family Network, with having language access available for these forums, and to the point of how I'm connecting with by opening opportunities and pathways to continue to listen to them. One neighbor told me that they don't usually vote for municipal elections, but because of me, she is going to go and vote, and she's going to help her 18-year-old register to vote. And she's got her mom who's so do you see the ripple effect that one person can ignite and inspire in others? So I hope to continue to be that. I already have a proven track record of doing that as well. I think that one of the opportunities that City Hall has is to continue to think of ways to bring in our voices, but also look to our youth. We have the City of Manchester that welcomes youth as a youth advisory board to participate in city government, and I'd love to see that here for Nashua. So I'm thinking not just about our families and individuals, but also just across generations. I met a neighbor who's 94 years old, lives alone, has been widowed for 20 years, and she still volunteers at St. Joseph Hospital. She doesn't drive, but she gets picked up. So I asked, how will you get to vote? How will you get to the voting booth? I'll pick you up. And she said, I have a neighbor who's already offered. And so that's the kind of communication and connection that I want to continue to help build here in Nashua.
Dr. G, in your response to the Ink Link questionnaire, you said that you have spent your career making tough budget decisions, and that tough decisions and asking hard questions are not things you are afraid to do if elected. You also spoke about finding new ways to expand the housing options and tax base. We see that there's a big issue tonight, the topic at hand. What tough decisions would you make to expand housing options and the tax base?
So I think we have to look at how we can redevelop other areas in Nashua, and that might have to be looking outside of downtown. We might have to look at some of these areas and go to some of these private owners that are hoarding in some of our land that the city doesn't own, that is just sitting there vacant. I think we look at areas that are up at Exit 6 and over there by our Home Depot and our Kohl's, where the Chunkies used to be, where there's a whole bunch of vacant areas, but the private owner is just asking way too much for rent in those commercial spaces that could help us bring in other businesses, possible businesses that might not be retail jobs, but actual good paying jobs. But we've got to find a way to do a public-private partnership that would redevelop that land space that would allow us to do that. But we've got to have a city partnership that goes to that owner and says, here's what we've done, and here's how we could redevelop that area that would make you, the landowner, money, but also help our residents by bringing in these new jobs that are going to provide opportunities for our citizens, while also maybe doing around some of those wraparounds. It could have housing, it could have the mixed-use development, and this is some of the things that we actually did when I went through the city academy here in Nashua. We actually sat down with our city planner and actually did a small focus group for them to actually take and look at that whole shopping center area. So I think those are some of the innovative ideas that we have to do, and that goes to what has been said here of actually listening to our residents and our youth of what can we do to provide them the future that they need to be successful and want to continue living here. Thank you.
Ms. Johnston, you have said that part of the conversation of affordability is expanding job opportunities in the city. How can the city foster the growth of job opportunities?
Well, you have to have a good, I'm got to think it in my brain, the person, economic development director who's going to go out and speak with businesses, just like Justin said. You could take old buildings and turn them into new technology centers. What the building Justin was talking about is the old Montgomery Ward building, and it's seen many faces there. And so going out, partnering with the city, but the city can't give businesses a complete tax deferment. And that's what's happening now, because instead of having them pay taxes, we're doing like a tax credit. I was just listening to this the other night with the board. And so that doesn't help us, the taxpayers, if they get their taxes deferred or they get credits. So I think the city economic development director has to go out, speak with the businesses and say, look, we want to partner with you, but we can't give you tax credits because it's not fair to the residents of the city. And I think once we start seeing a little bit more growth, because we got to, again, take the focus off of all the apartments right now, and we're going to be building more, but we have to put the focus on bringing those jobs into Nashua instead of seeing them leave, like a restaurant downtown. They're closing their doors in 2 days. So if these employees don't follow to Portsmouth, now they don't have a job. And so it all kind of evolves around the same thing. You can't have a downtown that's going to be fleeing. You lose your jobs, and you're going to try to bring businesses in, and if it's going to be down towards the downtown area, they're not going to want to come in.
Okay. This question is a member from the audience, submitted question, goes to Ward 1. If the city of Nashua is financially responsible for the airport commission, why doesn't the city incorporate the airport into the city's economic plans? And I will let Mr. Chess answer that first.
That is a great question that I have not thought about previously. So I'm going to actually take this as a pivot to something that I don't know the answer to everything. Like I mentioned before, I'm not an expert on everything, and my focus is truly going to be on finding the room in the budget to be able to help with the homeless population. With that said, if there are issues like that, I am more than happy to spend the time researching with experts to find the best strategy forward. I'm not going to sit up here and lie to you and say, I know everything. I do not. And unfortunately, that's one of the ones I don't have the answer to. But again, I'm not ashamed to not know everything, but I am proud to say that, again, I'm happy to look into that issue.
Thank you for your candor. Ms. Gallagher.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. If the city of Nashua is financially responsible for the airport commission, why doesn't the city incorporate the airport into the city's economic plans?
Yeah, I actually didn't know that either. So I'm not familiar with that, but it sounds like if the city is financially responsible for it, then it should be included.
Mr. Dowd was a former commissioner. I'll have you answer that question.
I was going, the question I can answer. The airport authority was established in an agreement with the state years ago. The city gets to appoint the commissioners on the airport authority or the members of the airport authority, but it's a state organization, the state group, not a city group. And they are self-sufficient. The airport is self-sufficient. We only provide them monies when they have projects that are normally 90% federally funded, 5% state funded, and 5% locally funded. Lately, we've been getting projects that are even more federal funding, and the percentage is like 2.5. So you can get multi-million dollars of improvements to the airport for what's considered short money. And all money's expensive, but so there's no budget as far as the day-to-day or cost of running the airport that the city has to pick up. That's all, they're self-sufficient. They have revenue sources that allow them to function.
Mr. Guttrow.
So I concur with what Alderman Dowd says, but I also have been seeing on the Board of Aldermen, they've been talking about economic development plans along the Amherst Street corridor, and what they envision for Amherst Street to be. And I've grown concerned because some of the plans that they've come up with seem to have included plans that include buildings that are higher than I think the FAA will allow along that corridor. And so I'm a big fan of economic development in the city. I just think that we need to have the right economic development plan for that. And so if we're going to put buildings that are not going to be allowed by the FAA because of we have that air traffic in there, I just think that we need to be prudent when we're planning those types of activities along Amherst Street.
Mr. Dowd.
There are clear zones established by the FAA, and the city cannot, no one can put buildings into the clear zone. The FAA will clamp down on that in a heartbeat.
Anybody else want to answer? Okay. All right, we're going to move on. Thank you. New growth is good, and so is general aviation. There is a ballot question for this election in regards to social districts. And I'm going to ask all of you to weigh in on this. How do you feel about the idea of social districts in Nashua? And the definition, I have to pull it up because I saw the ballot question and I was very confused. A defined outdoor area in which a person may consume alcoholic beverages sold by a licensee. Ms. Johnson.
I'm not in for it at this point in time. I think before you start having establishments giving out more alcohol, we need to clean up what's going on downtown at this point in time. It sounds good in theory, but I have to read up more on it, but from what I've heard at the board meetings, it just doesn't strike me as the right thing to do at this point in time in the city. Thank you.
Ms. Gallagher.
Yeah, so I have heard, I understand the reasoning behind it is in an efforts to maybe get some of the people from theater over there beforehand or after, or kind of have like a garden area, like a beer garden area, which in theory does sound fun and lovely. But I personally do not think it's a good idea at all, because then you have all the logistics, right? The open container, all the rules around it. And then we have our precious police force almost spending all of their resources on the small little things, that how big is your container? You can't bring it from there to there, but you can bring it from there to there. But I think the most concerning part about this question is that I also was extremely confused when I read the question on the ballot. And I think it's unacceptable to have that question on a ballot and not explain to the residents what it actually means, and just write it on the ballot and say, hey, vote yes or no, when no one really knows what it means.
Dr. G?
So I think it's, so I'll say I'm in favor of it, but only because I was at the Alderman meeting when they voted to put it on the ballot. And the reason that it's even on the ballot is because they put it on there to vote whether or not the next Board of Aldermen, who is currently being elected, gets to decide whether or not we will establish them, and the rules for whether or not we will establish them, how we will establish them, when we will establish them, and as a way to try and help drive economic development in our city. So, but I agree with everything that's been said. There was no definition on the ballot to let anyone who's voting on it know that. It seems as though if we vote on it, it just comes across as yes, and we immediately get them and there's going to be beer gardens everywhere, when in reality it was to allow the residents to provide the next board. And I appreciate what the current Board of Aldermen did, which was saying we want to get it out there to the residents so that they can vote to provide the next Board of Aldermen the ability to make it, because the current board did not think it was fair to make the rules for our current residents when they did not know if they were going to be the next serving aldermen or women. So they wanted to get it out there so that the residents could decide, yes, we should start establishing our rules coming up in the next couple of years. And so that is why it's actually on the ballot. But again, we don't have that out there. And so that's why I'm in favor of it, because it's to establish the rules, not to just start willy-nilly opening beer gardens all over the place in January.
Mr. Chess.
So that context was actually a bit I did not know. Again, always learning. Originally, I was going to say my answer doesn't really matter because it's going to the people, and my opinion on whether there's open carry or not doesn't matter. But since it's just going to come back to us to make the rules, now my opinion does matter to you. So I lean against it in not to vote against it in the ballot from that context. I would support it in that context. However, I would not support doing anything with it until we get, again, a bit more of a grasp on the unhoused problem in our community. That really has to be the first thing we focus on before we worry about things like that.
Ms. Chulin.
Yes, as a public health champion, I'm always thinking about the direct impact and unintended consequences. So I would have to better understand what some of the rules would be around the parameters around these beer gardens or open carry. But one thing is very clear, I think the whole panel is saying, is that we need community input. That's what we need to know before we can even make decisions on parameters. And it sounds like here's another reason why access to understanding our own rules and how things are presented is so important. So I would encourage that we help our neighbors understand what this issue is, and then as aldermen, understand the direct impacts and unintended consequences by talking to public health, by talking to the police. I do see the benefit, the economic opportunities to have that. I am, again, just also thinking about what could possibly be the cons around that. And I've heard, I've read some of the arguments against it. But again, I think it's up for the voters to decide, and then we continue to listen to them to establish those parameters.
No, we're going in. Hold on.
Yeah,
You're
I
just
have
jumping.
something else
You
to
would
add
jump.
from the
me off
meeting.
there for a moment.
Sorry.
Because we went. Hold on. Now I apologize because I had this order, and as you can see, you saw
I
my
think it's
pad.
Matthew's.
I believe Mr.
Yeah.
Guthrie was.
Okay, you can go to me. How many people here have been to Tuscan Village in Salem? Okay, so Tuscan Village is the model for what this legislation is all about. So they have a beer garden in Tuscan Village in which they can sell beer openly in the open, and people can drink there and enjoy bands and camaraderie and all sorts of stuff there. It's my understanding that in order for us to do something like this, we need to put it on the ballot, and the state requires us to do so. I think that, this will also come into play when we have events like the Stroll in Nashua and stuff like that, to have vendors for that. It's a perplexing issue, because unless you build the appropriate fences around this ordinance, and it's not even an ordinance yet, we're just asking the residents if it's something that we want to do. You're going to open up Pandora's box, we have a homeless issue, and one of the tools that our police department has is drunk and disorderly conduct. And, if we have that, we're going to run into situations like that. So hopefully we'll build the appropriate fences around that to prevent that from happening. With that being said, I think that we need to take a look at this. But my concern is, as many of the people on the dais have talked about, is not only the vagueness of what was put onto the ballot, but also the lack of marketing that the city has put out there to explain this to the public so that they can educate them on what this is truly about. And so I hope that City Hall actually does something with this in the future to let people know what this is about.
Thank you. I apologize because I was trying to keep track of who has not answered this question. Everybody got Mr. Dowd.
So first of all, ambiguous questions on the ballot drive me crazy. I hate that. And pointed it out several times in the past. Second thing is, when we initially heard it, I said, absolutely not. I've been to New Orleans on government business many times, and trust me, you don't want that model. But what came down from the state was, if you ever want to consider it, you have to put it on the ballot. It's a non-binding ballot question, so even if the entire city said yes, the city government could say no. There's a whole bunch of rules associated with it, and I'm not going to get into all of them, but so it's on the ballot. They want to get a feeling, as driven by the state, is how do people feel about it? And we'll see.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes left, and there are two questions I really want to ask you all, but I think we're going to leave it to one. How do you plan to engage residents and include their voices in major decisions? Ms. Johnston.
Thank you very much. I always have my phone number available for people to contact me. I'm always around in the city. People see me all the time at the grocery stores, everywhere. But most of all, Facebook. I have a website, and also I will have meetings for the community to come out in Ward 5. Unfortunately, you have these meetings and nobody shows up. It's an unfortunate thing. So no matter how hard you try to get your message out, you can door knock every door and you're not going to find people home. People don't want to get engaged until something happens. That's when you hear your constituents starting to scream about something. But the door is always open, like I've said to people before. When we didn't have the internet, people used to call me on the phone all the time. If I wasn't available, I always made it a point to call everybody back. You can call me, you can text me, you can email me. I'm always, like I said, I'm always available, and I meet so many great people in the grocery store that I don't get out. I see some of my friends in the audience that I meet at the grocery store, and before I know it, I'm forgetting what I'm buying because I've had these conversations with people. They know me. I don't know half of these people, but you know what? If there's a problem, I will direct them who to go to, or I'll say to them, give me your phone number. I'll make a phone call, and I'll get back to you and see if I can help resolve your issues. And I'm not even elected, and I'm more than willing to help people. I'll give you my phone number at the end, so if you want to call me with an issue, I'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you.
I like that spirit. Dr. G.
So much like Paula said, my phone number is readily available. I've got a website. I have got Facebook and Instagram and all of the socials that any of the college students will tell me about. I have to try them out so we can keep up with them. My husband teaches a social media class, so I've got to try them all out. So you can find me on all of them, and residents can find me on all of them. But I think one of the things that we also have to get back to is the times before social media where we waited for people to come and find us, and we have to go and find them. So I can host a ward meeting and say, come and meet me where I am. But I think we wait to go door knocking during election season, and we actually need to do it the entire time we're elected and go and ask our residents what is going on in your lives right now in the ward, so that we can take that with us back to City Hall. We shouldn't find out what's going on with our residents because we're door knocking when it's election time. We should be finding this out while we are actively elected, so that when it comes to election time, they're like, oh, I don't need Justin to come knock at my door because he's been doing it for the last 2 years. And that's what we should be doing as elected officials, is showing up for our residents and then going and representing them at City Hall with the concerns that they actually have, instead of waiting for them to come to us.
Ms. Chulin?
Yes, I have said this before, and it's really important to hone in to Justin's point too, that what I'd like to do is flip the script on how we are bringing in and including resident voices. So meeting where they are. I've mentioned the Nashua Family Network Group, and I have been given the gold star that I am the one who recruits the most parents. And the reason why is because I am in places where parents are. So we have to remember that we're not going to be meeting parents only in certain structured events, but going to playgrounds, going to schooling events, sport events specifically, here at the library, running programs to help increase language access to our Spanish speakers. Our diversity is growing in this city. So we talk about as English readers how difficult it is for a vague ballot question. How is it around Spanish speakers who may not have the opportunity to gain that full access? So for me, it's really about including all of the voices. And because I'm bilingual, I'm able to do that. I'm also encouraged to continue to keep the lines of communication open, using and leveraging technology. So Facebook Lives or hosting online Zoom events. Again, some of the people in our community may not want technology at all. So I'm thinking of our senior folks. So what is their best channel of communication? It's not guessing, it's asking where they are. Thank you.
Mr. Dowd?
Yes, I do have a Facebook page. I also used to have a comprehensive website, but it got very expensive to keep having it redesigned for much more functional use. But people can get in touch with any of the current aldermen by just going on the city website. All of our contact information is there. And you can even call our legislative assistant, and she will direct you to the right alderman if you're looking for something. And the other thing I've been doing, and there's information on my handouts that are going out. Also, I've recently had pens made with my address on it.
Cool.
And believe me, I go out and give these to businesses and restaurants. They want to rip them out of my hand, and we never have enough pens. So and because people take them, and it has my address on it, so my email address. So if you go in any place in Ward 2, you'll probably find them.
Mr. Guttrow?
Yes, so in the business that I'm in, I am a big communicator, and I feel that I'm going to extend that through my act as Ward 2 Alderman. Through my door knocking, I've gotten to meet so many amazing people, but just like Paula says, I see them at the grocery store, I see them at Stello Stadium when I go to the football games. So I see a lot of people, and we talk for such a long time. I plan on continuing with my website, my strong social media presence, but I also want to continue I want to start holding alderman meetings in the ward. I want to do those quarterly. I want people to come and hear what's going on at City Hall. I want to be engaged with them. I want to hear what their ideas and aspirations are for our great city. And I will invite not just our residents there, but I want to invite also our elected officials to hear what's going on at the State House so that they can tell us what's going on there on a quarterly basis. I'll also keep office hours for phone and email. So I want to be able to have that lifeline out to people. So if they have any concerns or anything, that they know what's going on and they're abreast of everything that's happening in the city.
Mr. Chest.
You're not going to hear anything unique from me, as everyone has said, email and phone and meetings and this and that. You can also reach me at all the forms of communication, and people are in the ward specifically seem interested in continuing the meetings that Tyler did as well. So definitely going to keep that up. In the interest of transparency, I love your idea to door knock throughout the term, and I commend you for it. I'm a transparent guy. That will not be me. I am not going to go knock on everyone's door. I do work full time and have a beautiful family. I am still here for you. Come to me with your issues. I am encouraging of people to come with their issues. I am here to solve your issues, but I'm not going to be knocking on your door. Call me, text me, email me, come to my meetings. I'm here for you.
Ms. Gallagher.
Yeah, thank you. So we are in a nice, unique position because we do have such a wonderful alderman currently, Tyler Govea, who is running at large. So his Ward 1 seat will now be open. And I really want to make sure, if elected to continue, the different things that he has put into place, like, for instance, reaching out to the residents through mail, also scheduling the ward meetings. But also, I think that we're in such an interesting time where we can poll so many people so quickly. So for instance, being online and having Facebook, and whether it be, someone's face or even just an anonymous comment, I think that we are able to grab so much information so quickly that we just have to harness that and go from there. And I can always be reached on Facebook through my email address as well, and I'm happy to give anyone my phone number as well if you want to have more of a personal conversation. So just feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you. And this concludes our first of 4 candidates forum hosted by the library and Nashua Ink Link. We'll be returning next week on Wednesday, October the 8th at 6:30 p.m. This recording will be posted online. Our thanks to Nashua Ink Link and the Nashua Public Library and the folks at Nashua Community Media for this event. And of course, our candidates, so let's give them a round of applause. And just a reminder, Election Day is on November 4th. And so you can get more information on the city's website at nashuanh.gov. For the Nashua Public Library, Nashua Ink Link, and Nashua Community Media, I'm Ronnie Camille. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next week, have a good evening.